Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Your boy woke up feeling fancy today, so you know what? I tossed on the love layer jacket that we normally use when gaming, and I said, let's get to ranking because we're going to be talking about my top 36 wide receivers and my top 18 tight ends for today. Hey, hit the like button for me. Subscribe if you're new here to the channel. Leave a comment down below, and it's time to absolutely roll into all of it. And let's kick it off with the wide receiver. Stefon Diggs is going to be number one for me. And the reason I'm leaving him at number one is because the game in Buffalo could be moved. All right? Let me absolutely make that clear. The NFL is talking with the Browns and the Buffalo Bills about potentially moving the game from Buffalo to a neutral site. The last time that happened was back in 2014 when the same thing happened. A huge snowstorm was getting ready to rip through Buffalo, and they moved the game to Detroit instead and played at Ford Field. It's happened before. It could happen again. With that being said, even if there's 19 feet of snow, have you ever seen Stefon Diggs play football? He's still a guy that I would start. I'm not going to sit Stefon Diggs because of a snowstorm. I would, obviously, if they do play in Buffalo, would bring back my expectations on him a little bit. But I've got him right at the top of the list because I wanted everybody to hear this and see this at the very beginning to understand what I'm talking about. Now, you're not going to sit him. I would say if for some reason the game does end up being played in that type of a snowstorm, then we're going to probably dial him back more to like a high-end wide receiver too. But you're going to have to find some pretty good options to sit Stefon Diggs. So as of right now, we're going to leave him up there, and we're just going to continue to monitor the weather and whether or not the NFL actually moves the game out of Buffalo. Justin Jefferson from Minnesota coming off a huge week. Now he gets Dallas. A lot of people are going to argue he's the best wide receiver in football. The dude absolutely insane catches last week. Oh my gosh, this dude is on an absolute roll right now. DeAndre Hopkins, no word on Hollywood Brown yet. Yes, he's back to practicing, but there's no guarantee that he would suit up this week. As of right now, I'm going to move forward like he isn't going to be suiting up, and then we'll adjust on Saturday during the live show and then Sunday morning if that ends up changing. CeeDee Lamb against Dallas gets a great matchup against Minnesota. We're going to roll with him this week. He was the only wide receiver to score a perfect 25 rating in our start and sit video. Amon-Ra St. Brown for Detroit going up against the New York Giants. Yes, the Giants are typically better against wide receivers, and they've shown that this year, but Detroit does a really good job of scheming Amon-Ra St. Brown away from that tough coverage. I still think he sees a lot of targets this week. T. Higgins going up against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is having a tough time against wide receivers this year. He's got a nice amount of upside. Yes, TJ Watt is back, and yeah, it might cause Joe Burrow to need to move a little bit, but this offense line is getting better and better with each week. It's even a little bit better now at this point, now that they are coming out of the bye. Hopefully we see another step forward. A.J. Brown against Indianapolis is going to have a tough matchup, but I do think we're going to get A.J. Brown going again. I think Philadelphia is going to say, yep, one of the reasons we probably lost last week is because we didn't really get him what he needed in terms of volume. Devontae Adams has a really tough matchup against Denver. They've given up the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers this year, but over the last 4 weeks, they've given up the 10th most. That trade of Bradley Chubb has hurt them a little bit in terms of, bumping back on the pressure. Justin Simmons has been banged up. Devontae Adams could still end up having a pretty good week this week. Deebo Samuel at number 9. I like Deebo against Arizona. Again, this is a team that I think as soon as we kind of work in the mechanic of Christian McCaffrey, what is that going to do for Deebo Samuel? Going up against Arizona when I believe Arizona is probably going to be throwing it a little bit as well. They're going to have to probably play a little bit of catch up potentially at some point. I like Deebo this week. I think they're going to make sure that they do some different schemes with him to kind of get him open, get him in the open field and allow him to pick up some extra yards. Maybe the volume won't be there, but if we get him 5 to 6 targets, I think that's more than enough to do some damage with. Tyler Boyd against Pittsburgh. Again, Pittsburgh has having a tough time against wide receivers this year. Tyler Boyd is a great option this week. Mike Williams. I'm moving forward with Mike Williams as he's going to be playing this week. And I mentioned it in the start and sit video that as of that time, they had been practicing. Williams and Keenan Allen. Kind of the same thing right now. Williams and Keenan Allen have practiced. There's still no guarantee. However, If Williams were to come back this week, I think he comes back and he comes back. He's ready to go. Keenan Allen is the one that I would be worried about coming back and having his workload kind of eased back in to make sure that he doesn't re-injure that hamstring another time. So Mike Williams, big upside against Kansas City this week if he plays. Allen Lazard going up against Tennessee. Big touchdown potential for Allen Lazard. I like his opportunity this week. Terry McLaurin against Houston. Houston has been a little bit tougher against wide receivers. That's why I'm not going any higher with Terry McLaurin. Carson Wentz is starting to kind of work his way back, but there's been no guarantee on who's going to be the starter when he comes back. We're going to move forward as Terry and Taylor Heineke are the guys connecting there. Darnell Mooney against Atlanta has got a really nice upside this week against Atlanta, who is giving up top 5 in terms of fantasy points to wide receivers. Cortland Sutton against Las Vegas. If this isn't the week that he does it, he's not going to do it. So we're going to go with him one more time. We're going to give him the ceiling this week, and we're just going to keep our fingers crossed that he absolutely hits it. Rondell Moore. Again, I'm moving forward with Rondell Moore as if there's no Hollywood Brown. If Hollywood Brown plays this week, we will readjust. Michael Pittman Jr. going up against Philadelphia. A little bit of a lower ceiling for me, but still seeing more than enough targets. Josh Palmer got him right in here. Again, if Keenan Allen is slowly worked back in, Palmer should still be on the field quite a bit. And quite honestly, if Palmer's getting quarterback 2 coverage while they're worrying more about Mike Williams, that actually could lead to some big plays for Palmer. Christian Watson going up against Tennessee. Again, a really good matchup for Christian Watson. I don't want to go overboard on last week's performances. He's still going to have some inconsistencies in his game. Brandon Ayuk going up against Arizona. I mean, he was on the cusp of having a huge week last week. Still had a good week, but dropped that touchdown. Unfortunately, had a fumble at another point as well. We're going to put all that on the back seat, though. I just don't see Jimmy G not going towards Brandon Ayuk when he's going to be open down the field so often. Garrett Wilson has a tough matchup this week, but seeing plenty of volume that he could slip right in here. Low wide receiver 2, high wide receiver 3. Chris Olave, kind of the same thing. Unfortunately, it does look like Andy Dalton's going to continue to be the starter, and it is the LA Rams, so Andy Dalton's going to have some pass rushers in his face. Hopefully, we can at least get Chris Olave enough targets to get him kind of into this area. Kadarius Toney against the Chargers, just kind of scooting him back here a little bit. As of this recording, Mecole Hardman and Juju Smith-Schuster were not practicing, so we're going to leave Kadarius Toney right in here. And if we know for sure those guys are going to be out, then we might even bump them a little bit higher. Amari Cooper, again, talked about it already. That weather, we don't know what's going to happen with it, so I'm going to leave him right here. Now, for some reason, if that weather ends up holding true, and that's what we see, Amari Cooper will still be a start for me. Donovan Peoples-Jones will not. His name is coming up. And Gabe Davis will not. His name is coming up. And we'll talk about those guys in a minute. But Amari Cooper is a guy that's going to be a little bit more of that possession wide receiver, 5-10 yards at a time, big-bodied guy that's going to win those throw-up targets. That really, that's what it's going to be in this type of weather. We just know that he's going to have a really low ceiling. Allen Robinson, might be the wide receiver 1 now on this team for the time being. We'll see if him and Matt Stafford can connect. And by the way, as of this recording, we don't even know if Matt Stafford's going to be back this week. We'll talk about maybe moving Allen Robinson a little bit up if we find out Stafford is coming back. Adam Thielen going up against Dallas. Good touchdown upside. I like it this week. DJ Moore against Baltimore. Don't mind it. We're going to keep him much lower, though, in the rankings moving forward. And just if he has a huge game, then that's just a bonus for us. Donovan Peoples-Jones, just mentioned it. In a bad weather game, I'm going to go away from Donovan Peoples-Jones. I'm going to trust in Amari Cooper a little bit more. Gabe Davis, kind of the same thing, kind of a big play guy there on that Buffalo team. If they end up playing in the snow like it's currently predicted that's going to happen, yes, we'll knock Gabe Davis out. But if they go play in nicer weather, dome or whatever it may be, then I'm liking this matchup for him a lot. Paris Campbell going up against Philadelphia. I don't have Paris Campbell as a start just because the numbers aren't there, but I told everybody that he is a guy that if you need to throw in as an emergency option, Matt Ryan looks his way too much for him to not be fantasy viable. Jacoby Myers is going to have a tough matchup against the New York Jets, but if we can keep him in the slot as much as possible, I still think the guy could see double-digit targets this week. Darius Slayton against Detroit, highly touchdown dependent, but the big play opportunity is going to be there. Devontae Smith, tough matchup against Indianapolis. But I mentioned it in the start and sit show. If the Eagles do not come with their A game, Indianapolis will. And the Eagles are going to find themselves in a situation where they could lose back-to-back games if they are not ready to go. If that happens, they're going to have to throw it a little bit, and Devontae Smith is going to have to be the guy to kind of help out in that type of a tough matchup. Brandon Cooks against Washington. Just don't love what I'm seeing from Cooks, but it's a good matchup, so we'll keep him inside the top 36. The Duve against Carolina is the wide receiver 1. Should be some volume there for him. And Jarvis Landry going up against the LA Rams coming out of the slot. We'll see if Andy Dalton maybe tries to lean on him a little bit more. What are some players that just missed the cut for me? Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, both of these guys just missed the cut. Right now, Deontay Johnson, he's just a guy that's, yeah, he's getting targets, but he's doing absolutely nothing with the targets. And Pickens is getting some targets, but he's doing just a little bit more. So neither of these guys have high upside with them. If I had to pick one, I would pick Pickens over Deontay Johnson right now. Wan'Dale Robinson, for those of you in PPR leagues, he's a guy that might offer you a few points this week. Lower ceiling for me, though. Van Jefferson, if Matthew Stafford plays this week, he has big play touchdown potential. Nico Collins, kind of the same thing. Good matchup, touchdown potential, but he's not a guy that I'm really risking everything with this week. Let's move on to the tight end position. I mean, the top of the tight end position, I think, is pretty safe this week. Kelsey, obviously, he's a beast. Andrew, obviously, he's a beast. George Kittle has a really, really good matchup this week. So does Dalton Schultz, and Schultz is coming off a really good performance. All 4 of these guys should be really, really safe players that have a really good upside as well, and they all have touchdown potential. Then you get a guy like Tyler Higbee, Greg Dulcich. Both of these guys, when you take a look at them, they've got even better opportunity this week because they're dealing with injuries on their team. No Cooper Kupp, no Jerry Jeudy. Hopefully that translates to something. Higbee has been a very safe target this year. The points haven't really, been consistent. The points haven't really been consistent for Higbee. But if there's no Cooper Kupp, and he's already been a huge target in this offense, I'm going to have to assume that he's going to be an even bigger player at this point. Kind of that safety valve. Greg Dulcich, no Jerry Jeudy. So the upside is going to be there. Russell Wilson's been looking his way. Yes, last week was pretty bad, but if you look at the weeks before that, the guy was absolutely balling. I like his upside. Now we come down to Pat Freiermuth. Pat Freiermuth comes in here at number 7. He's got touchdown potential. Maybe the volume isn't going to be there. Maybe the big plays aren't going to be there, but if they can get to the red zone, Freiermuth is kind of that number 1 guy in the red zone right now, and he's kind of the number 1 target for Kenny Pickett. I like his potential, and not, it's an inconsistent offense. That's why I've got him lower. TJ Hawkinson, don't really know if I love the touchdown upside, but they've been looking his way quite a bit. So yes, his ceiling's a little bit lower. That's why I don't have him higher, but he should still be a safe start for you. Same thing with Cole Kmet at this point. Lots of touchdown upside, right? But what are we going to get from this offense on a weekly basis? It's been really good so far. Can they stay hot? I'm just trying to bake in a little bit of that kind of drop in production that we might see where he kind of comes back to earth a little bit. Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson, both of these guys have touchdown potential this week. That's why I have them inside the top 12. Tyler Conklin is the guy that I'm going to put as a start this week. It is a tough matchup, but the wide receivers outside of Garrett Wilson haven't done a whole lot. I'm hoping Conklin can find the end zone this week. Kind of the same thing for Dawson Knox. We're kind of looking at Dawson Knox, if this isn't a bad weather game, to be a safety outlet for Josh Allen, where maybe he's just dumping off to him a little bit. Kyle Pitts is dropping significantly for me. The guy just isn't doing anything. He's down here with these other guys that have potential. Kyle Pitts, Hayden Hurst, Robert Tonyan, Trey McBride, all these guys have potential. They could find the end zone. They might have a decent game, but there's a whole lot of risks for them. And then I toss Harrison Bryant in there as well, because again, depending on the weather from that game, maybe he's a guy that sees a few dump offs there. It doesn't look like David Njoku will play this week. He is back out of practice again. They're holding him back again this week. So I don't know if he really had that much of a setback. I just don't think he was ready to ramp it up as quickly as they had thought. So they're dialing him back a little bit more, and I think that's just fine. So Harrison Bryant will be in there. And then for some of you as well, Kylan Granson is a guy that if you're absolutely desperate, if there's no Mo Alley Cox and we see Jelani Woods out as well, Kylan Granson is a guy that I could definitely see myself putting in my lineup too. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Absolutely blew through all the rankings for you. Hopefully you got enough information to start setting your lineups. Make sure you check back on Friday for all of our updated videos. We'll have Dr. Ethan Turner on talking about injuries, Jake Mike and Tater are going to be on talking about the weather. That's definitely going to be important to watch. And then, of course, we'll be live on Saturday night, and then I'll be live on Sunday morning for our members only stream. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here, though. All of you stay safe and healthy. Peace out, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.